Look up at the night sky. What do you see? A scattering of distant stars, cold and silent? Or do you sense something more, something ancient and alive? For thousands of years, humanity has gazed at the heavens and seen not just points of light, but stories. Myths woven into constellations, gods walking among the stars, and cosmic battles etched across the darkness. What if the stars themselves are more than celestial bodies? What if they're fragments of forgotten legends waiting to be remembered? This is a journey into the heart of the divine cosmos, where astronomy and mythology collide in breathtaking ways. Across cultures and centuries, our ancestors looked up and saw the universe as a living, breathing tapestry of gods, heroes, and monsters. The Greeks traced the shape of Orion the hunter, forever chasing the Pleiades. The Navajo spoke of the black god who placed the stars in careful patterns. The Aboriginal Australians navigated by songlines paths sung into existence by ancestral spirits. These aren't just stories, they're maps of human wonder etched in starlight, and that's just the beginning. Hidden in the cosmos are 30 astonishing legends, tales of creation and destruction, love and betrayal, all written in the language of the stars. Some whisper of celestial beings who shaped the universe with their hands. Others tell of mortal heroes who dared to challenge the heavens. From the fiery chariots of sun gods to the cosmic serpents coiled around the edges of the world, these myths reveal how humanity has always sought meaning in the vast, unknown dark. So tonight, let's step outside, look up and listen, because the stars have been telling their stories for millennia, and now it's time to hear them. Before the dawn of science, the rising sun wasn't just a celestial event. It was a god in motion. The ancient Greeks watched the horizon blaze each morning and saw Helios, the radiant deity who rode his golden chariot across the heavens. Picture this, a team of fire-breathing horses, their hooves scorching the clouds as they pulled the sun itself through the sky. This wasn't just poetic imagination. It was how an entire civilization made sense of the world. Every sunrise was Helios beginning his daily journey, and every sunset marked his descent into the Western Ocean, where he'd sail back east in a mystical cup to start again. But Helios wasn't just a passive observer. When his son Phaethon begged to steer the chariot, disaster struck. The boy lost control, setting the earth ablaze until Zeus intervened with a thunderbolt. This myth wasn't just entertainment, it explained the scorching heat of summer and the terrifying power of wildfires. Even solar eclipses had a place in the story, seen as moments when the moon dared to block Helios' path, throwing the world into temporary darkness. Today, we understand the science behind the sun's movement, but Helios' legacy lingers. The word heliocentric roots itself in his name, and solar imagery from crowns of rays to flaming chariots still symbolizes power and vitality. When you see a sunrise tomorrow, remember, you're witnessing the same celestial drama that once made an entire civilization hold its breath. The chariot may be gone, but the wonder remains. Every night, as the sun slipped below the horizon, ancient Egyptians believed their world hung in the balance, because Ra, the sun god, wasn't simply resting, he was entering the underworld, steering his solar bark through a realm of shadows and danger. And waiting for him there, coiled in the eternal darkness, was Apep, the cosmic serpent of chaos. This wasn't just a monster. Apep embodied pure destruction, a force so terrifying that even the gods trembled at his name. His goal, to swallow Ra whole, plunging the world into endless night. But how did this myth connect to the stars? Look up on a clear night, and you might catch a glimpse of the Milky Way's dark rift, a winding, serpentine void cutting through the band of stars. To the Egyptians, this wasn't random. It was Apep's body stretched across the heavens, and when comets streaked through the sky with their fiery tails. Those were moments when the serpent lashed out, his defiance visible to all. Even solar eclipses took on new meaning, Apep's jaws momentarily closing around the sun before Ra fought free. The battle was eternal. Every sunrise wasn't just a new day. It was Ra's victory, his light scattering Apep's forces once more. Priests performed rituals to weaken the serpent, inscribing curses on wax figurines and burning them at dawn. They believed their spells reached into the cosmic struggle, aiding Ra in his nightly voyage. This wasn't mere superstition. It was an entire civilization's way of making sense of celestial patterns, turning the unpredictable comets, eclipses, even the Milky Way's shape into a story of order triumphing over chaos. Today, we might see these events as natural phenomena, but the legacy of Apep endures. The word apocalypse traces back to his name, a reminder that humanity has always feared the unraveling of cosmic order. Next time you see a comet blaze across the sky, remember, you're witnessing the same celestial drama that once made pharaohs and priests hold their breath. The names have changed, but the awe remains. High above the summer sky, two stars burn brighter than the rest, Vega and Altair, forever locked in a celestial dance of longing. This isn't just a random pairing of stars. To ancient China, they were Xinu, the heavenly weaver, and Niulang, the humble cowherd, bound by love but torn apart by the cosmos itself. Their story begins with magic. Xinu, daughter of the Jade Emperor, wove the clouds and seasons with threads of starlight. But when she fell for a mortal man, their happiness shattered the divine order. Enraged, the Emperor hurled the Milky Way between them, a river of stars too vast to cross. Yet love has its own magic. Once a year, on the 7th night of the 7th lunar month, magpies take pity on the pair. They flock together, wings bridging the heavens to form a living bridge, the only night Xinu and Niulang can reunite. This moment birthed the Qixi Festival, often called Chinese Valentine's Day. Young women once knelt beneath the stars, threading needles with colored silk to prove their skill like Xinu, hoping to attract wisdom and a worthy match. Lovers whispered wishes to Vega and Altair, believing the stars carried their prayers across the Silver River. But this myth isn't just about romance. It's a mirror of ancient values, the tension between duty and desire, the divine and the mortal. The Jade Emperor wasn't merely a villain. He embodied the Confucian ideal of order, while Xinu's defiance reflected Taoist yearnings for harmony beyond rules. Even the magpies reveal a deeper truth. In nature, as in myth, compassion defies division. Today, the Qixi Festival thrives, blending tradition with modernity. Couples exchange star-themed gifts, and telescopes point to Vega and Altair, their light a reminder that some bonds defy even the universe. When you next spot these stars, remember, you're not just seeing celestial bodies. You're witnessing a love story etched in the sky for millennia, proof that even the gods couldn't extinguish the human heart. To the Vikings, the universe wasn't a cold expanse of empty space. It was a living, breathing tree. An immense ash named Yggdrasil, its gnarled roots clawed into the fabric of existence, connecting 9 wildly different realms in a delicate balance. Picture this: one root plunged into the well of Erd, where the Norns' fate-weaving sisters carved destiny into its bark. Another reached Mimir's well, a pool of cosmic wisdom so potent that Odin sacrificed an eye just to drink from it. And the third, it fed from Hvergelmir, a boiling cauldron of primordial chaos, where the dragon Nidhogg gnawed relentlessly at the roots, threatening to unravel the world itself. But Yggdrasil wasn't just a bridge between realms, it was a celestial map. Vikings navigating the open sea might have glanced at the aurora borealis and seen the Bifrost, the flaming rainbow bridge arching from Midgard, the realm of humans, to Asgard, home of the gods. The constellations weren't random dots to them. They were hung from Yggdrasil's branches like glittering ornaments, Orion's belt, perhaps Freyja's necklace, Brisingamen glinting in the void. The North Star, a fixed point in the heavens, much like the tree's unchanging trunk amidst cosmic turmoil. And then there's Odin's sacrifice. For 9 days and nights, the Allfather hung from Yggdrasil's branches, pierced by his own spear, starving and bleeding, all to gain the secrets of the runes. This wasn't just mythology, it was a metaphor for the Vikings' own harsh reality. Life demanded sacrifice, wisdom came at a price, even the gods weren't exempt from suffering. When winds howled through the ash trees of Scandinavia, the people heard whispers from Yggdrasil's leaves, a reminder that the cosmos was alive, watching, testing. Today, we might see the world tree as mere legend, but its influence lingers. The very word Tuesday comes from Tyr, the god who sacrificed his hand to bind the wolf Fenrir. The concept of interconnected realms echoes in modern multiverse theories, and that image of a serpent coiled at the roots, it's not so different from the Ouroboros, the ancient symbol of cyclical destruction and rebirth. Yggdrasil wasn't just a story, it was a framework for understanding existence, a way to find meaning in the chaos of storms, wars, and unforgiving winters. Next time you stand beneath an old tree, look up. Its branches might not hold the stars, but the echoes of Yggdrasil still rustle in the leaves. In the vast expanse of Hindu mythology, few legends capture the grandeur of cosmic struggle like the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the celestial ocean. Imagine this: gods and demons locked in an eternal battle, yet forced to collaborate for the ultimate prize, the nectar of immortality. They coiled the cosmic serpent Vasuki around Mount Mandara, using his body as a rope to churn the primordial waters. But this wasn't just a myth. Hidden in this tale are echoes of celestial mechanics, a dance of gods and demons mirroring the very motion of the heavens. As the mountain churned, the ocean yielded wonders, divine treasures, deadly poisons, and finally, the moon itself. According to some interpretations, the moon's emergence from the cosmic waters symbolizes its origin in ancient cosmic collisions, a celestial body born from chaos. But the legend goes deeper. The churning's rhythmic motion mirrors the precession of equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that shifts our view of the stars over millennia. Just as gods and demons pulled the serpent back and forth, the heavens themselves seem to churn, cycling through ages in a cosmic pattern that repeats every 26,000 years. Yet the moon's role in this myth is especially striking. The deity Chandra, born from the ocean's froth, was said to wax and wane because of a divine curse, a poetic explanation for the lunar phases. Even today, Hindu festivals like Karva Chauth tie lunar cycles to rituals, showing how this ancient story still shapes cultural rhythms. And let's not forget the poison. When the churning threatened to unleash destruction, Shiva swallowed the venom to save the universe, his throat turning blue, a celestial event mirrored in rare atmospheric phenomena where the moon itself appears to take on eerie hues. What makes this myth so enduring isn't just its spectacle, but its layers of meaning. It bridges astronomy and spirituality, suggesting that the ancients saw cosmic order in both myth and sky. The next time you gaze at the moon, remember it's not just a rock in space. It's a relic of a divine struggle, a shimmering remnant of the day gods and demons churned the ocean of stars. To the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the night sky wasn't just a canvas of stars. It was a living storybook where constellations weren't drawn with light but with darkness. Among these celestial figures, one stands out not for what shines, but for what doesn't: the emu in the sky. Unlike Western constellations that connect stars into shapes, this ancient figure is carved from the dusky lanes of the Milky Way itself, its sprawling form revealed by the absence of light. Stretching from the Coal-Sack Nebula near the Southern Cross to the galactic center, the emu's body emerges as a vast silhouette, a shadowy outline against the starry river of the galaxy. But this wasn't just a clever trick of observation. The emu in the sky was, and still is, a sacred timekeeper. When its shape appears upright in the April night sky, Aboriginal elders knew the season had come to gather emu eggs, a vital food source. By June, as the emu's form seemed to squat low on the horizon, it signaled the eggs had hatched, hunting ceased to protect the next generation. This celestial rhythm wove itself into songlines, ancestral paths sung into existence during the Dreamtime, linking land, sky, and culture in an unbroken cycle. The stories behind this constellation run even deeper. In some traditions, the emu was once a man who neglected his duties, transformed into the sky as a lesson in responsibility. Others tell of a giant emu pursued by a celestial hunter, its fate forever etched in the dust clouds of the Milky Way. These narratives weren't mere folklore, they encoded survival knowledge, teaching when to hunt, when to harvest, and when to let the land rest. Even the Coal Sack Nebula, often seen as the emu's head, held warnings. Its deepening darkness heralded the arrival of cold winter winds. What's remarkable is how this ancient astronomy challenges modern stargazing. While Western eyes trace Orion's belt or Scorpio's tail, Aboriginal sky watchers perceived meaning in the voids between stars, reading the sky as one might read tracks in the sand. The emu in the sky isn't just a constellation, it's a testament to human ingenuity, a reminder that the cosmos speaks in many languages. Next time you gaze at the Milky Way, try shifting your perspective. Look not for the glitter, but for the shadows. There, in the darkness, the emu still runs, a timeless guide written in the breath of the universe. Imagine a universe where the night sky isn't just a blanket of stars, it's the scaly back of an ancient celestial crocodile, its jaws gaping open to swallow the sun each evening. This wasn't fantasy to the ancient Maya, it was their cosmic reality. They called this monstrous being Sipak or Itzamkab-Ain, the earth crocodile, a primordial creature whose body literally held the world together. Its spine arched across the heavens, forming the Milky Way, while its belly cradled the earth, and its open maw became the entrance to Xibalba, the terrifying underworld. Every sunset wasn't just a daily cycle, it was the moment the crocodile devoured the sun, dragging it through the underworld until dawn, when the star would emerge victorious once more. But the Maya didn't stop there. They saw the crocodile's movements as a celestial clock. When the Milky Way stretched horizontally across the sky during dry seasons, it marked the crocodile floating lazily on the waters of creation. But in rainy months, when the galaxy stood vertically, the beast was rearing up, a harbinger of storms, flooding, and the gods' displeasure. Even the eclipses carried dire meaning, a bite taken from the sun or moon by the crocodile's jagged teeth, a sign of impending chaos. Priests would scramble to perform rituals, beating drums and piercing their tongues with stingray spines to spill blood offerings to soothe the cosmic beast before it unraveled the world. What's fascinating is how deeply this myth intertwined with Mayan astronomy. The dark rift in the Milky Way, a dense lane of dust and gas, wasn't just an astronomical feature. It was the crocodile's gaping throat, a portal to the afterlife. The Pleiades, often depicted as a rattlesnake's tail on the crocodile's back, signaling the arrival of the agricultural cycle. Even the planet Venus, revered as the war god Kukulkan, was seen as a shimmering scale on the creature's hide, its movements dictating when to plant, when to fight, and when to pray. This wasn't mere storytelling. The Maya built their cities to mirror the crocodile's form. Temples aligned with celestial events like the equinoxes, where shadows slithered down staircases like the beast's scales. Cenotes, those sacred sinkholes, weren't just water sources. They were the crocodile's eyes, pools of starry reflection where priests communed with the cosmos. Even their calendars, those precise wheels of time, were said to be etched into the reptile's hide, each cycle a pulse in its eternal heartbeat. Today, we might dismiss this as myth, but the Maya's genius lies in how they wrote their science into the story. The crocodile wasn't just a monster, it was a model, a way to explain precession, eclipses, and seasonal shifts long before telescopes. When you look up at the Milky Way tonight, try seeing it through their eyes, not just stars, but the glittering scales of a cosmic guardian holding the universe in its jaws. The names have changed, but the awe remains, proof that sometimes truth wears the mask of a myth. Long before calendars marked the solstices with neat lines, the Polynesian people watched the skies with a different kind of wisdom. They noticed how the sun raced across the heavens, its hurried path leaving their crops scorched and their fishing nets empty. Days felt unbearably short, nights stretched too long, and no mortal could keep up with the sun's relentless pace. That's when Maui, the great trickster demigod, decided enough was enough. Armed with nothing but his cunning and a magical jawbone, often said to be from his grandmother's sacred ancestor, he gathered his brothers and hatched a plan to snare the sun itself. Picture the scene as the sun rose, its golden fingers barely touching the horizon. Maui and his brothers waited in silence. They'd spent the night weaving ropes from coconut fiber, their strength fortified by chants passed down through generations. As the sun's fiery face crested the land, they lashed the ropes to the jawbone, creating a net of both physical and spiritual power. With a heave, they flung it skyward, the fibers singing as they caught the sun's rays, and suddenly the unthinkable happened. The sun screamed, its light flickering like a trapped animal as Maui's noose held fast. What happened next wasn't just a victory for Maui, it was a gift to all humanity. The sun, forced to bargain, agreed to move more slowly across the sky. No longer would days blaze by in a frantic rush. Now the sun would linger, granting longer hours for planting, fishing, and living. This myth didn't just explain why days lengthened in summer. It encoded celestial knowledge, the solstices, those pivotal moments when the sun seems to pause at its northernmost or southernmost point, became moments to honor Maui's cunning. But the story runs deeper than seasons. That jawbone, often linked to the goddess Hain Nui Te Po, hints at the cycle of life and death. The sun's capture and release mirrors the way Polynesian navigators read the stars, knowing when to push forward and when to wait. Even today, traditions like the Maori Matariki Festival celebrate this balance, marking the rise of the Pleiades as a time to reflect on Maui's lesson. That sometimes progress demands boldness, but always it requires respect. Look up the next time you feel the sun's warmth linger at dusk. That slow, golden light, that's Maui's handiwork, a reminder that even the cosmos listens when wisdom and courage speak. Before the world had shape, before the sky arched overhead or the ocean sprawled beneath, there was only chaos, a swirling, primordial void, and in the darkness of that void, a monster stirred. Her name was Tiamat, the goddess of salt water, a dragon of such vastness that her body was the ocean itself, her scales the waves, her roar the thunder of unformed storms. This is where the Babylonian epic of creation begins, not with a gentle hand molding clay, but with a cosmic battle that would carve the universe from the carcass of a god. Enter Marduk, the storm deity, young and fierce, armed with winds that could split mountains and a net woven from the four directions. He faced Tiamat in single combat. The battle shook the foundations of existence. When Marduk finally drove his spear into her heart, he didn't just slay a rival, he unlocked the raw materials of creation. From Tiamat's corpse, he split the heavens and the earth like a clamshell, her ribs becoming the vault of the sky, her weeping eyes the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates. Even her tail, once thrashing in fury, was pinned in place as the Milky Way, a glittering scar across the night. But this isn't just myth. Modern astronomy reveals eerie parallels. Planetary formation theories describe how violent collisions in the early solar system led to the birth of worlds. Theia, a Mars-sized body, is thought to have smashed into a young Earth, scattering debris that coalesced into our moon. Tiamat's violent end mirrors these cataclysms, creation born from destruction, and that net Marduk wielded. Some scholars suggest it's a metaphor for gravitational forces, invisible threads that shape cosmic bodies from chaos. The Babylonians saw deeper meaning in this story. Marduk didn't just tame chaos, he imposed order, dividing time into days and nights, assigning stars their paths. His victory celebrated the triumph of structure over entropy, a theme echoing in everything from thermodynamics to urban planning. Even today, traces linger. The word Teham in Hebrew scriptures, meaning the deep, descends from Tiamat's name, a linguistic fossil of her watery reign. What's striking is how the myth endures. When astronauts describe Earth from space as a pale blue dot, they echo Marduk's perspective, a fragile order carved from cosmic vastness. Next time you gaze at the night sky, remember, you're not just seeing stars. You're witnessing the aftermath of an ancient dragon's fall, a universe forged in fury and shaped by a storm god's will. The names have faded, but the echoes remain. Beneath the frozen expanse of the Arctic, where ice meets the unyielding dark, the Inuit tell of Sedna, the vengeful goddess who rules the sea's bitter depths. Her story begins not with divinity but with betrayal. Cast into the ocean by her own father, her fingers clutching the edge of his kayak in desperation, she was left to drown as storms raged. But when the knife came down, severing her grip, something miraculous happened. Her fingers, sinking into the abyss, twisted and swelled into the first seals, walruses, and whales. The very creatures that would sustain her people for generations were born from her anguish. Yet Sedna's wrath was as vast as the ocean. When hunters grew greedy or disrespectful, she would withhold her children, starving villages into submission. The seas would empty, ice would thicken, and the only hope was for a shaman to descend into the underworld, braving frigid waters and the goddess's tangled hair, thick with the sins of humanity, to soothe her fury. Rituals of apology, offerings of fresh water, and the combing of her hair were the price of survival. And here's where the myth turns celestial. Some say the aurora borealis, those shimmering curtains of light, are Sedna's lanterns, flickering as she searches the waves for her lost fingers. Others claim they're the spirits of shamanic journeys, dancing across the sky as mediators between worlds. What's chilling is how this ancient warning speaks to modern crises. When Inuit elders today speak of thinning ice, erratic animal migrations, and starving polar bears, they invoke Sedna's name. Her myth wasn't just a story, it was an ecological covenant, a reminder that nature's balance is both delicate and demanding. The same overhunting that once angered the goddess now mirrors industrial overfishing. The warming Arctic melting the ice that was Sedna's domain feels like a cosmic reckoning. Even the auroras, shifting with Earth's magnetic field as climate alters atmospheric currents, seem to carry her lament, but there's hope in the telling. Recent collaborations between Inuit knowledge keepers and scientists have revealed how Sedna's lore encodes precise environmental data. The timing of seal births, the paths of whale migrations, passed down through generations. The goddess's anger, it turns out, was a lesson in reciprocity. Take only what you need, honor what sustains you. The stars, the seas, and the shimmering lights above are all threads in the same story, one we're still learning to read. When the northern lights flare green and violet tonight, listen closely. They might just be Sedna whispering across centuries, reminding us that the sacred and the scientific were never truly separate. When the sun vanishes from the sky without warning, clawed away by unseen jaws, the Cherokee people knew exactly who to blame: Ulagu, the great leech. This wasn't just some pond-dwelling parasite. Ulagu was colossal, a primordial horror lurking in the black waters of the underworld, its body stretched across the cosmic depths. And when hunger stirred in its gut, it would rise, slow, insatiable, to swallow the sun whole. The legend isn't just about fear, it's about defiance. Cherokee eclipse rituals were acts of cosmic emergency. As darkness fell, villages erupted in chaos, drums pounded, dogs howled, and every able-bodied person grabbed pots, pans, anything that could raise a din. Children were told to shake rattles and scream at the sky. The goal, to terrify Ulagu into spitting the sun back out. This wasn't superstition, it was warfare. Every clang and shout was a weapon aimed at the leech's sensitive hide, a collective roar to startle it into retreat, and it worked every time, because without fail the sun would reappear, its light splintering through the creature's grip as it fled back into the abyss. But look deeper, and Ulagu's story holds startling astronomical insight. The Cherokee weren't just describing an eclipse, they mapped its phases with eerie precision. The leech's initial bite, that was the moon's first shadow creeping over the sun, the moment of totality when the world plunged into eerie twilight. Ugalgu swallowing its prey whole, even the diamond ring effect, that burst of light as the eclipse ends, mirrors the leech loosening its grip, sunlight bursting through its teeth. This myth wasn't a blind guess. It was an observation refined over generations, a way to predict and explain celestial events long before telescopes. Today, the eastern band of Cherokee Indians still honor this tradition. During solar eclipses, you might hear elders recount Ulagu's tale, not as folklore but as living science. Modern astronomers work alongside tribal knowledge keepers, noting how these stories encode orbital mechanics. The leech's hunger cycles align with Saro's periods, the 18-year patterns governing eclipse repetition. Even the underworld's black waters find a parallel in theories of dark matter, an unseen force bending light like Ulagu's murky domain. What makes this legend endure isn't just its vivid imagery. It's the reminder that mythology and astronomy were never truly separate. For the Cherokee, an eclipse wasn't a cold celestial alignment. It was a battle, a community rallying to defend their light. Next time the sun vanishes at midday, listen closely. Beneath the silence, you might still hear the echoes of rattles and drums, the defiant cry of a people who refused to let the darkness win. To the Aztecs, time wasn't a straight line, it was a wheel turning through eras of chaos and renewal. Their world wasn't the first, it was the fifth, born from the ashes of 4 previous suns, each one destroyed in a cataclysm tied to the cosmos. The first sun, Nahui Oslotl, was the age of the jaguar. Earth was ruled by giants who fed on wild fruits until the sky itself collapsed, and monstrous jaguars poured forth, devouring every living thing. This wasn't just a tale of destruction, it was an explanation. The Aztecs saw jaguars as creatures of the underworld, their spotted coats mirroring the night sky, and their ruthless hunger embodying the chaos that could unravel creation. Then came Nahui Ehekatl, the son of wind. For 52 years, this era thrived until the winds turned violent, scouring the land with hurricanes so fierce they tore mountains apart and scattered humanity into monkeys. Here, the myth hides a clue. 52 years matched the Aztec century, the Zumilpilli, when their sacred and solar calendars aligned. A cycle completed, a world reborn. Next rose Nahui Quiahuatl, the son of rain, but this time the heavens rained not water but fire. Magma erupted from the earth, and flaming serpents, likely comets, streaked across the sky until the world burned to cinders. The fourth sun, Nahui Atl, brought water. It was an age of perfect balance until the rains refused to stop. The sky cracked open, flooding the world until even the mountains drowned and survivors twisted into fish. This deluge mirrors global flood myths from Noah to Manu, but the Aztec version holds a darker twist. The goddess Chalchutlicue, who wept the flood into being, was also the protector of newborns, a paradox of creation and destruction intertwined. And then the fifth sun, Nahui Olan, the age of movement. Unlike the others, its demise was predetermined. The gods gathered at Teotihuacan, where Nanahuatzin, the humblest among them, leaped into the sacrificial fire to become the sun. But without blood, it wouldn't move, so Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, journeyed to the underworld to retrieve the bones of past worlds, mixing them with his own blood to create humanity. This sun would end in earthquakes, the Aztecs believed, its fate written in the very calendar stone that tracked its days. What makes this cosmology extraordinary isn't just its violence, it's its precision. The 5 suns weren't random myths, they were a scientific model. The jaguar sun's collapse mirrors ancient climate shifts, the wind sun's destruction echoes hurricane cycles, and the rain of fire could describe volcanic winters. Even the fifth sun's predicted earthquake demise aligns with modern knowledge of seismic zones beneath Mesoamerica. The Aztecs didn't just fear the end, they prepared for it. Every 52 years, they extinguished all fires, broke pottery, and waited atop temple stairs to see if the Pleiades would cross the zenith, proof the sun would rise again. If the stars moved right, priests lit a new flame in a captive's chest, offering blood to fuel the cosmos. Today, we might see these stories as legends, but their echoes linger. The Mexican flag bears an eagle perched on a cactus, a sign from the gods marking where Tenochtitlan, heart of the fifth sun, should be built. When earthquakes rattle Mexico City, some still whisper of Olin's impending doom. And that calendar stone, it wasn't a prophecy of apocalypse but a reminder. Every era ends but renewal follows. The fifth sun still burns for now, but the Aztecs knew, as we're learning, that balance is fragile and time is a circle, not a line. Deep in the frozen lands of Finland, where winter nights stretch endlessly beneath shimmering curtains of light, the Kalevala epic speaks of a treasure beyond gold, the Sampo. This wasn't just a magical artifact, it was a cosmic forge hammered into existence by the smith god Ilmarinen. Its lid ground out salt, one side spun thread as fine as starlight, and the other side minted coins that gleamed like distant suns. But the Sampo's true power lay in its mystery. Some say it crafted the northern lights themselves, its celestial sparks leaping into the sky to paint the auroras. Others whisper it was the heart of an ancient trade empire, a symbol of wealth so potent it sparked wars between gods and heroes. The legend unfolds like a winter storm. When the witch Lauhi stole the Sampo, hiding it away on a mist-shrouded island, the heroes Väinämöinen and Lemminkainen set sail to reclaim it. Their battle shook the heavens, and in the chaos, the Sampo shattered its fragments, scattering across land and sea. Here's where myth blurs with reality. Fishermen along the Baltic coast once spoke of finding strange, glowing stones in their nets, calling them Sampo shards. Could these have been fragments of meteorites, their otherworldly glow mistaken for divine remnants? Or perhaps amber, the gold of the north, traded along routes that stretched from Finland to the Mediterranean? But the most haunting theory ties the Sampo to the auroras. In Sami tradition, the northern lights were sparks from a giant fox's tail, while Finnish lore sometimes describes them as celestial fires stoked by invisible smiths. The Sampo's grinding lid, spinning like a cosmic mill, could easily mirror the aurora's undulating patterns, a celestial factory weaving light from the raw materials of the void. Even the Kalevala's description of the Sampo's destruction aligns with auroral substorms, where the lights writhe violently before fracturing into fragments. Yet the Sampo's legacy isn't just poetic. Scholars note how its myth parallels the spread of Bronze Age metallurgy, with Ilmarinen embodying the smiths who brought metalworking to the north. The coins it minted might represent the first standardized currency, while its salt, a precious commodity in ancient Finland, hints at early trade networks. Even the ship used to steal the Sampo matches archaeological finds of Viking-era vessels, suggesting the epic preserved real history in mythic form. What makes the Sampo endure isn't just its magic, but its ambiguity. It's a star forge, a trade relic, and a cosmic metaphor all at once. When you next see the northern lights dance, look closely. Those flickering greens and purples might just be the last echoes of Ilmarinen's hammer, still ringing across the centuries. Every dawn and every dusk, the Slavic people looked to the sky and saw not just stars but sentinels. The Zoria sisters, Zoria Utroniaea, the morning star, and Zoria Vechoniaea, the evening star, were more than celestial markers. They were the keepers of time itself, standing guard over a creature so terrifying its very existence threatened the cosmos. That creature was Simagl, a fire-breathing hound chained to the constellation Ursa Minor, his leash woven from the threads of fate. If he ever broke free, legend warned, he would devour the constellation, and with it, the axis of the universe would shatter, unleashing an apocalypse beyond reckoning. But here's what makes this myth so hauntingly precise. The Zoria sisters didn't just watch over Simagl, they took shifts. Atraniea, clad in rosy light, would open the gates of heaven each morning for Dajbog, the sun god, to ride his chariot across the sky. As her shift ended, Vechaniea, draped in twilight, would guide the sun safely below the horizon. Their eternal vigilance wasn't poetic license, it mirrored the actual motion of Venus, the planet that appears as both morning and evening star. The sisters' alternating duties reflected celestial mechanics long before telescopes revealed the truth. And then there's Simagl. This wasn't just a monster, he was a paradox. Part hound, part winged serpent, he embodied chaos and creation in one. Some traditions link him to the Iranian Simurgh, a mythical bird of wisdom, while others see him as a Slavic take on the world-ending wolf Fenrir. But his chains, they weren't just physical. The Zoria sisters' prayers, woven into rituals at dawn and dusk, were said to reinforce his bonds. Families would leave offerings of bread and honey at windowsills during these transitional hours, a plea to the goddesses to keep their watch unbroken. Modern astronomers might smile at the idea of a cosmic hound tied to Polaris, but the metaphor holds eerie weight. Ursa Minor, the little bear, circles the North Star in an endless loop just as Simagl strains against his tether. If Earth's axial tilt shifted drastically, it would disrupt our celestial navigation, much like the apocalypse foretold in the myth. Even the sisters' duality speaks to a deeper truth: balance. Day and night, order and chaos, creation and destruction, their vigil reminds us that the universe hangs in a delicate equilibrium. Today, traces of the Zoria endure. In Ukraine, embroidered towels still feature twin goddesses flanking a tree of life, their threads mirroring the leash that holds Simagl at bay. Belarusian folk songs whisper of the dogs of the sky, their howls echoing just beyond the edge of twilight. And if you stand under the stars at dawn or dusk, listening closely, you might just hear the echo of an ancient promise, that as long as the sisters keep their watch, the world will turn, the stars will hold, and the hound will remain bound. In the beginning, there was light, brilliant, unyielding, pouring from the heavens as the goddess Amaterasu wove the world with her radiance. But one day, the sun vanished. Not a gradual dimming, not a slow fade, just gone. The story begins with rage, with betrayal. When Amaterasu's storm god-brother, Susanoo, rampaged through her celestial rice fields and flung a flayed horse into her sacred weaving hall, the goddess did something unprecedented. She retreated into a cave, sealing the entrance with a boulder, and the world plunged into utter darkness. Crops withered, rivers froze, the cries of confused roosters echoed through perpetual night, unsure when to herald a dawn that never came. This wasn't just myth, the tale mirrors real cataclysms. Japan's volcanic archipelago has known moments when ash blotted out the sun for months, like the massive eruption of Mount Asama in the 6th century, which triggered famines recorded in the Nihon Shoki chronicles. Amaterasu's withdrawal could be a folk memory of such events, where the sun's absence wasn't symbolic but a visceral, life-or-death crisis, the god's desperation to lure her back. A blueprint for survival, they staged a raucous festival outside her cave, mirrors glittering, drums pounding, the goddess Yuzum dancing with such wild abandon her clothes fell away, sending the assembled kami into roaring laughter. Curiosity tugged at Amaterasu. Peeking out, she saw her own dazzling reflection in a mirror, the first, some say, ever crafted, and mistook it for another radiant deity. In that moment of distraction, the god seized her, dragging the sun back into the sky. But the rituals born from this myth weren't just theater, they became sacred technology. The Yota no Kagami, the mirror used to lure Amaterasu, remains one of Japan's imperial regalia, enshrined at eyes to this day. Kagyura dances performed at shrines nationwide reenact Yuzum's revelry as a form of cosmic maintenance, reminding the sun not to leave. Even the New Year's first sunrise ceremonies, where millions climb mountaintops or flock to coastal cliffs, echo the collective relief of a world reclaimed from darkness. What's striking is how the legend encodes astronomical wisdom. The cave's location, Amano Iwato, is often linked to specific valleys where winter solstice sunlight vanishes for days as if swallowed by stone. The mirrors used in the myth, they might symbolize early understandings of reflected light, a way to capture the sun's essence when it seemed lost. And that flayed horse Susanoo hurled, its flesh, in Shinto tradition, became silkworms tying the story to Japan's silk trade, where threads woven under Amaterasu's light clothed emperors and funded temples. Today, scientists recognize Amaterasu's myth as more than folklore. The volcanic winter hypothesis, where eruptions dim the sun enough to collapse civilizations, finds eerie parallels in her story. When Sakurajima erupts or Typhoon Hagibis unleashes floods, priests still perform Kagura not just as tradition, but as a covenant with nature. The cave is always waiting. The boulder could roll back, but as long as there are mirrors to reflect hope, drums to shake the earth, and dancers reckless enough to make the gods laugh, the light will return. Dawn, after all, is just Amaterasu taking her throne again, one defiant ritual at a time. In the dry cliffs of Mali, where the Niger River bends like a question mark, the Dogon people have guarded a secret for centuries, a secret written in the stars. Their oral traditions speak of Sirius not as a single star, but as a system of three: the brilliant Sirius A, the impossibly dense Sirius B, and a mysterious third star yet undiscovered by modern astronomy. Here's what baffles scientists. Sirius B is a white dwarf, a dying stellar remnant so faint it wasn't even photographed until 1970. Yet the Dogon described it perfectly, calling it Potolo, a tiny star made of the heaviest matter, orbiting Sirius every 50 years. How could a people without telescopes know this? Their priests spoke of Sirius B's elliptical path and its staggering density, facts matching modern astrophysics. They even drew sand diagrams showing Sirius A and B's orbital dance centuries before Western astronomers confirmed it. Some point to the Nommo, amphibious beings the Dogon say descended from Sirius in a spinning arc, bringing this cosmic wisdom. Others argue the Dogon's knowledge traces to early Arab astronomers or colonial missionaries. But here's the twist: the Nommo myth predates European contact by generations, and no known historical source recorded Sirius B's existence before the Dogon. Look closer and the mystery deepens. The Dogon's 50-year Sigwi ceremony aligns suspiciously well with Sirius B's actual orbital period. Their cave paintings depict a star system that resembles modern Hubble images. Even their term for Sirius B, Potolo, comes from Po, their word for the smallest seed, a eerie parallel to how white dwarfs pack sun-sized mass into Earth-like dimensions. Skeptics note that Dogon cosmology also includes inaccuracies, like claiming Jupiter has moons before Galileo's discovery, which turned out to be wrong. But the Sirius enigma remains unsettlingly precise. Modern astronomers grapple with this puzzle. Could the Dogon have developed advanced stellar math independently? Their understanding of angular momentum and celestial mechanics seems impossible without instruments. The ancient astronaut theory gained traction in the 70s, but anthropologists counter that cultural contamination. A researcher possibly leading questions might explain some details. Yet the Dogon's own adamance is striking. Elders still teach star lore to initiates in secluded caves, insisting the knowledge came from the Nommo's visitation, not human discovery. Ultimately, the Sirius mystery forces us to reconsider what advanced civilization means. Maybe the Nommo were metaphors for comets or meteor showers that sparked celestial observations. Or perhaps in the Dogon's intricate oral traditions, we're seeing something far rarer. A case where myth and science orbit each other like twin stars, each illuminating truths the other can't quite reach. When Sirius rises over Mali tonight, remember, sometimes the most profound discoveries aren't found in telescopes, but in the stories whispered across generations under an open sky. High above the rolling hills of Wales, where the night sky clings to the horizon like a cloak of jewels, spins a wheel of silver Arianrhod. To the Celts, this wasn't just a cluster of stars. It was a celestial fortress, a spinning castle suspended in the heavens where the souls of the departed waited between lifetimes. Unlike other constellations that rose and set with the seasons, Arianrhod held its ground, circling Polaris in an endless dance. The Druids called it the Silver Wheel, a name that whispers of its divine architect, Arianrhod herself, the goddess of the moon, fertility, and the untouchable stars. Her legend begins with a cosmic test. When her brother Gwydion tricked her into stepping over a wand to prove her virginity, she birthed two sons in that instant. One, Lord Gifs, destined to become a solar hero; the other, Dylan, a creature of the waves who returned to the sea the moment he touched it. Enraged by the deception, Arianrhod cursed Lu, swearing he'd never take a human wife. But Gwydion, ever the trickster, crafted a bride for him from flowers, weaving her with magic and the essence of 9 blossoms. This wasn't just a family drama, it was a celestial allegory. The silver wheel symbolizes the cycle of death and rebirth, where souls like Lu undergo trials before emerging anew. What makes Arianrhod extraordinary is its astronomical precision. The Celts didn't just mythologize random stars, they mapped the circumpolar region, those never-setting guardians of the north. Modern astronomers identify it with Corona Borealis, the northern crown, though some argue it's the dimmer stars surrounding Polaris, forming a literal wheel in the sky. The Druids, master observers, likely noted how these stars never dipped below the horizon, making them a perfect metaphor for the eternal, a place where time itself seemed to pause. Rituals held at stone circles like Bryn Celli align with these stars, their passages framing the silver wheel's path during solstices. Arianrhod's fortress wasn't just a waiting room for souls. It was a testing ground. Welsh bards sang of heroes who glimpsed the wheel in dreams, their spirits pulled into its orbit to face challenges before returning to earthly life. The medieval Mabinogion describes it as a realm of revolving walls, where only the worthy could enter, a motif echoing shamanic journeys across cultures. Even the imagery is precise: silver, the metal of the moon, spinning like the Milky Way's arc, a cosmic loom weaving destinies. Today, traces of this myth linger. The Welsh word Caer means both fortress and sky, a linguistic hint at how deeply the Celts tied earthly and heavenly realms. Neo-Druid rituals still invoke Arianrhod during lunar eclipses, seen as moments when the wheel slows, allowing passage between worlds. And if you stand beneath the northern stars on a clear night, watching them pivot around Polaris, you might just sense it, the faintest silver shimmer, like moonlight on a spinning wheel, turning endlessly as souls rise and return, each revolution a heartbeat in the vast, breathing dark. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the stars blaze with impossible clarity, the Incas saw more than just constellations, they saw stairways. The chacana, a stepped cross chiseled into temple walls and woven into textiles, wasn't merely a symbol. It was a map of the cosmos, a bridge between 3 realms: Honan Pacha, the upper world of gods and celestial beings; K Pacha, our earthly plane of existence; and Uku Pacha, the shadowy underworld of ancestors and potential. But this wasn't just spiritual poetry. The chacana's design mirrors the Southern Cross, that brilliant cruciform constellation that dominates the southern sky, its 4 central stars aligning perfectly with the symbol's cardinal points during the winter solstice. At Machu Picchu, the chacana's power becomes tangible. Stand atop the Intihuatana, the hitching post of the sun, during the June solstice, and you'll witness something extraordinary. As the sun sinks, its last rays slice through precisely carved notches in the surrounding stones, casting shadows that trace the chacana's outline onto the sacred rock. This wasn't accidental architecture. The Incas engineered their city to function as a colossal astronomical instrument, with the chacana acting as both spiritual compass and celestial calendar. The three steps on each side of the cross, they represent the Incan triad, the condor, the puma, and the serpent embodying heaven, earth, and the underworld. But they also correspond to the three stars of Orion's belt, which the Incas called the bridge, linking their cosmology to the same stars revered by the Egyptians and the Maya. What's often overlooked is how practical this symbolism was. The chacana's 12 outer points marked the months of the Incan agricultural cycle, while its center hole symbolized Cusco, the navel of the world, from which all roads radiated like cosmic ley lines. Spanish chroniclers recorded how priests used golden chacanas to predict eclipses, aligning them with the dark rift in the Milky Way known to the Incas as Mayu, the celestial river. When the moon's path crossed this rift during certain seasons, it was seen as a cosmic serpent entering the underworld, triggering rituals to ensure balance. Modern astronomers have found startling precision in these traditions. The angle between the chacana's crossbars measures exactly 23.5 degrees, Earth's axial tilt, the very reason we have solstices. The Southern Cross's orientation shifts throughout the year, but during the December solstice, it stands perfectly upright over Machu Picchu, mirroring the chacana's form. Even more intriguing, recent LiDAR scans reveal hidden tunnels beneath the site, their layouts echoing the chacana's three-tiered design, suggesting the Incas may have physically mapped the underworld beneath their celestial observatory. The chacana's legacy endures in unexpected ways. Quechua weavers still encode its pattern into fabrics, passing down astronomy through thread. Modern Peruvian engineers have noted how the symbol's proportions match the golden ratio, a mathematical constant found in spiral galaxies. And when you stand beneath the Southern Cross today, remember, you're not just seeing stars, you're gazing at the same cosmic blueprint that guided an empire, a ladder woven from starlight, stone, and the unshakable belief that heaven and earth were never truly separate. In the dust-choked ruins of Mesopotamian temples, where the wind still hums with the echoes of dead languages, a winged terror once darkened the skies, the zoo bird. This wasn't just some oversized eagle. The zoo was a deity in feathers, a storm-given form, with talons that could snatch divine authority right from the hands of gods. Its most infamous crime, stealing the tablets of destiny, ancient artifacts that held the very laws of the cosmos. Without them, the universe risked unraveling. The legend reads like a celestial heist. Enlil, king of the gods, guarded the tablets jealously, their cuneiform etchings dictating everything from the tides to the lifespan of mayflies. But the zoo, watching from its perch in the mountains, saw an opportunity. When Enlil dozed off because even gods need naps, the bird swooped in, seizing the tablets mid-flight. Instantly, chaos erupted, rivers flowed backward, stars forgot their paths. Even the sun hesitated at the horizon, as if unsure whether to rise or set. The other gods panicked. Who could retrieve the tablets before creation itself collapsed? Enter Ninurta, the warrior god of agriculture and thunderstorms. His battle with the zoo wasn't just a clash of strength, it was a duel of wits. The bird, after all, held the power to rewrite reality. Some versions say Ninurta loosed arrows tipped with cosmic venom. Others claim he tricked the zoo into dropping the tablets mid-flight by reflecting sunlight with his shield, mimicking the flash of a rival's wings. Either way, the tablets were recovered, and the zoo's fate varies, sometimes slain, sometimes banished to the underworld, its feathers becoming the first thunderclouds. But what's fascinating is how this myth might mirror real celestial events. The zoo's association with storms and sudden destruction aligns eerily with meteor showers, particularly the Lyrids, which peak in April when Mesopotamian crops were most vulnerable. The tablets of destiny could symbolize meteorite fragments, their unearthly composition seeming like divine script. Even the constellation Aquila, the eagle, sits near the Milky Way, a celestial river the zoo might have followed in its flight. Deeper still, the zoo's theft reflects ancient anxieties about disrupted order. The tablets weren't just laws, they were the universe's operating system. Their theft mirrors solar eclipses or comets events that made ancient sky watchers question if the gods had lost control. Ninurta's victory, then, wasn't just a hero's tale. It was reassurance that chaos could be contained, that even when the sky itself seemed to rebel, balance would return. Today, echoes of the zoo linger. The thunderbird motif recurs globally, from Native American lore to Hindu Garudas. And when a meteor streaks across the night, remember, it might just be the zoo's ghost still fleeing Ninurta's arrows, a feathered reminder that even the heavens have rules no creature, divine or mortal, can break forever. In the heart of West Africa, where the savanna meets the forest, the Yoruba people have whispered secrets to the stars for centuries, secrets taught to them by Orunmila, the celestial sage whose wisdom predates time itself. Unlike other gods who wielded thunder or commanded oceans, Orunmila's power lay in foresight. He didn't just observe fate, he read it like a map etched in starlight, deciphering the universe's hidden patterns through a system called Ifa. This wasn't mere fortune-telling. Ifa was and still is a complex astrological science, blending mathematics, mythology, and meticulous observation of the night sky into a living oracle. Orunmila's legend begins with a cosmic bargain. When the gods gathered to divide the world's powers, Orunmila chose neither wealth nor strength. Instead, he asked for the ability to see beyond the horizon, to know the threads of destiny woven into every human life. The gods granted his wish, but with a condition: his knowledge could never be hoarded. It had to be shared, passed down through a priesthood of diviners known as Babalawos. And so, the Ifa system was born, a celestial library encoded in 16 sacred palm nuts and a divination tray dusted with sacred powder. Each cast of the nuts corresponds to one of 256 possible Odu, or cosmic chapters, mirroring the Yoruba belief that the heavens are divided into 16 constellations, each governing specific fates. But here's where the stars come alive. The Babalawos didn't just throw nuts at random. They timed their divinations to celestial events, consulting the positions of Orion's belt known as Osupa and the Pleiades called Agogo to amplify their readings. The Odu associated with the rainy season, for example, often aligned with the appearance of certain stars heralding monsoon winds. Even the divination tray itself, called an Opon Ifa, is a microcosm of the cosmos, its circular shape representing the eternal cycle of time, its carved symbols echoing the paths of planets and ancestors. Modern Ifa practitioners still trace this lineage back to Orunmila's first pupils, who memorized thousands of verses linking stellar movements to human affairs. One Odu might warn of a client's illness when Mars retrograde crosses a particular star cluster. Another could prescribe rituals during the new moon when the veil between worlds is thinnest. This precision isn't coincidence. Yoruba astronomers mapped the sky long before telescopes, noting how Sirius's heliacal rising coincided with the Niger's flooding, or how Venus's cycles mirrored market booms and droughts. What's astonishing is how Ifa endures in the digital age. From Lagos to Havana, where the diaspora carried it through the Middle Passage, Babalawos now blend ancient star charts with smartphone apps tracking planetary transits. Scholars have even noted parallels between Ifa's binary code like Odu and modern computing, suggesting Orunmila's wisdom anticipated Boolean logic by millennia. Yet at its core, the system remains unchanged. A dialogue between earth and sky, where every question posed to the divination tray is, in essence, a prayer sent spinning toward the constellations. Next time you gaze at the night sky, consider this: those stars might not just be burning gas. They could be pages in Orunmila's celestial manuscript, waiting for someone, somewhere, to cast the nuts and listen. No ordinary birth heralded the coming of Vahan. The Armenian sun god didn't emerge from a womb or a sacred mountain. He erupted into existence inside a single reed stalk, his arrival so fierce it split the plant asunder in a blaze of crimson flame. Smoke coiled into the sky like a serpent, and from the ashes strode a deity with hair of fire and eyes like molten copper, already gripping a spear forged from the sun's own rays. This wasn't just poetic imagery. To the ancient Armenians, the reed symbolized the primal marshes of creation, while fire represented the unquenchable life force of the sun itself. Vahan's birth mirrored the daily solar rebirth, each dawn a tiny spark in the reeds of the horizon, blazing into full glory as it climbed the sky. But Vahan's legend didn't end with his fiery entrance. The young god soon faced his true calling, a war against the dragons of the land. These weren't mere monsters, they were cosmic antagonists, embodiments of the storm clouds that devoured the sun during Armenia's violent summers. Ancient petroglyphs near Mount Ararat depict the battle, Vahan's spear piercing serpentine shapes, their sinuous bodies etched to resemble rolling thunderheads. One particularly vivid myth describes him slaying a dragon so vast its thrashing tail carved the valleys of the Araxes River, its spilled venom becoming the mineral springs still prized for healing today. What makes this myth so striking is its layered symbolism. The dragon's multi-headed forms mirrored the forked lightning of thunderstorms, while Vahan's epithet, Vishapakog, or dragon reaper, hinted at a deeper agricultural truth. Armenian farmers timed rituals to his victories, knowing the monsoon season waned when the sun god cleared the skies in late August. Even his fiery breath had a practical parallel: the fierce Armenian winds, dry gusts that swept away lingering humidity, ensuring ripe harvests. Yet Vahan's battles weren't just meteorological. They encoded celestial events. The dragon's eclipse, like swallowing of light, recalls solar dimming during dust storms common in the Armenian highlands. Ancient observatories at Metsema aligned with solstice sunrises, where priests may have reenacted Vahan's triumphs as the sun stabbed the horizon with its rays. His name itself derives from Vahan, meaning descendant of the sky, linking him to the zodiac's path, a cosmic warrior eternally chasing storm serpents across the ecliptic. Traces of Vahan endure in unexpected ways. Early Christian scribes, unable to erase his cult entirely, rebranded him as Saint George, preserving his dragon-slaying legacy under a new name. The fiery trinity in Armenian folklore, sun, lightning, and forge flames, still bears his influence. And when summer storms darkened the skies over Yerevan, elders might still murmur the old verse. The heavens trembled, the earth shook, as Vahan fought the dragon once more. The names change, but the battle never ends. Light against shadow, order against chaos, a sun god's unbroken vigil written in the clouds. In the beginning, there was no sky, no sea, only the trembling darkness where Ranganui, the Sky Father, clung to Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother. Their bodies pressed so close that no light could slip between them. Their children, the gods, lived in that eternal night, curled in the narrow space between Ranganui's star-studded skin and Papatuanuku's mossy embrace. But the children grew restless. Tain Mahuta, god of forests, longed to stretch his limbs into towering trees. Tangaroa, god of the sea, ached for room to let his waves roll. And Tohiramatia, god of storms, hungered for wind to howl through. Something had to change. The gods gathered in the dark and debated how to part their parents without destroying the world. Some urged caution, others whispered of violence, but it was Tain who took action. Planting his feet against Papatuanuku's chest and his hands against Ranganui's ribs, he pushed with all his might. Muscles straining, roots digging deep, he forced the sky upward inch by inch until light, golden, blinding, flooded the space between them. The world breathed for the first time. Yet not all rejoiced. Tohiramatia, enraged by his siblings' betrayal, followed his father into the heavens and unleashed his fury. His winds shredded forests, his storms drowned islands, and to this day his tempests rage against the separation. Meanwhile, Papatuanuku's sorrow ran deep. Her tears became rivers, her sighs the mist that rises from warm earth at dawn. Ranganui, too, grieves his reign as the tears he weeps for his lost love, and at night you can still see his starry fingers stretching toward her through the Milky Way, which the Maori call Te Ikaroa, the great fish of the sky. What's astonishing is how this myth mirrors the very bones of the Earth. Modern geologists recognize Papatuanuku and Ranganui's embrace as a metaphor for Pangaea, the ancient supercontinent before tectonic forces wrenched it apart. The god's violent separation echoes the rift valleys and subduction zones that still shape our planet. Even Tohoromatia's storms find a parallel in the extreme weather patterns born from these geological shifts. The Maori didn't just tell a story, they encoded the Earth's memory in celestial allegory. Today, their legacy lives in sacred peaks where sky and earth seem closest, like Tongarero's volcanic slopes, and in the rising steam of Rotorua's hot springs, Papatuanuku's breath still warm beneath us. When earthquakes rattle New Zealand's islands, elders speak of Ranganui shuddering as he reaches for his love. And every sunrise, that's the moment their children relent, letting the parents' light touch, however briefly, across the horizon. The separation was necessary, but the longing, like the earth itself, remains eternal. High in the branches of the Geakarana, the mythic tree of all seeds, a creature watches the world with ancient eyes, feathered in gold and crimson, wings wide enough to blot out the sun, its voice carrying the wisdom of 17 centuries. This is the Simurgh, the Persian phoenix whose very existence blurs the line between myth and celestial clockwork. Unlike the fleeting lives of mortal beings, the Simurgh's lifespan, 1,700 years, is no random number. It pulses with the rhythm of the cosmos, possibly mirroring the return of great comets, those fiery wanderers that once set kings trembling and scribes scrambling to record their passage. The Simurgh's legend begins with healing. Its feathers could cure any ailment. Its nest, woven from cinnamon and rare spices, radiated an aura that reversed decay. When the hero Zal was abandoned as a baby for his unnatural white hair, the Simurgh swooped down, raising him in her eyrie and gifting him a single feather to summon her in times of need. But this wasn't just a fairy tale rescue. The feather symbolizes something deeper. A fragment of celestial knowledge passed between generations, much like the orbital calculations Persian astronomers etched into ziggurat walls. The Simurgh's purported 1,700-year lifespan aligns eerily with the orbital period of comets like Hale-Bopp, whose next return is predicted in the year 4385. Were ancient stargazers tracking these cosmic visitors, encoding their cycles into myth to preserve the data across millennia? And then there's the tree. The Geakarana, rooted in the cosmic ocean Varukasha, wasn't just a botanical wonder. Its sap granted immortality. Its fruit held the blueprints of every plant yet to grow. The Simurgh's perch atop its branches suggests a guardianship not just of life but of time itself. Zoroastrian texts describe the tree shaking violently when evil approached, a possible metaphor for cometary disturbances which were often seen as omens. The Simurgh's role: to calm the tree, to still the heavens. Even its molting feathers carried cosmic significance. Some scholars link their shedding to meteor showers, those fleeting trails of light that rain down like divine plumage. What's striking is how the Simurgh transcends cultures. The Turks knew it as the Conrul, the Arabs as the Anka, always a bridge between earth and stars. Its tears could heal, but its cry heralded upheaval. Persian miniatures depict it with the head of a dog and claws of a lion, a composite being reflecting the interconnectedness of all things. And when it finally plunged into its own flames, only to rise anew, it wasn't just reborn. It reset the cosmic clock, another 1,700-year cycle beginning anew. Today, the Simurgh's legacy lingers in unexpected places. The constellation Aquila, the eagle, bears similarities to its descriptions, and the word Simurg itself may derive from the Pahlavi Sen Mawa, meaning 30 birds, a nod to its incomparable majesty. When comet Neowise blazed across our skies in 2020, storytellers in Iran whispered of the Simurg's distant kin returning. Perhaps they were right. After all, the universe has always written its truths in fire and feather, waiting for those who still look up and wonder. Beneath the vast desert skies of the American Southwest, the Hopi people have long awaited the return of the Qixina's spirit beings who arrive not on horseback or in storms, but within the shimmering light of the Pleiades. These celestial messengers, known as the Chuhukan, descend from the star cluster the Hopi call Tsuyutapakwa, bringing more than rain to parched cornfields. They carry the very blueprints of civilization, teaching agriculture, weaving, and the sacred ceremonies that bind the people to the rhythms of the cosmos. Timing is everything. The Hopi calendar hinges on the heliacal rising of the Pleiades, the moment when the cluster first becomes visible at dawn after months hidden behind the sun. This event, usually in late May, signals the start of the planting season and the beginning of the Qixina ceremonies. Dancers don intricate masks embodying these star spirits, their movements mirroring the celestial dance above. The blue in their regalia represents the sky, the white the light of the stars, and the feathers adorning their heads. Those are prayers given physical form, rising like the Pleiades themselves. But the Qixina's connection to the Pleiades isn't just symbolic. Hopi oral traditions describe a time when their ancestors lived near these stars before journeying to Earth, echoing the scientific hypothesis that the Pleiades' gravitational influence may have shaped early solar system formation. The cluster's 7 brightest stars align with the 7 major Hopi villages, and their positions during ceremonies determine which songs are sung, which stories told. Elders note that the Qixina's grow restless if rituals are delayed, as if the stars themselves demand punctuality. Modern astronomers have noted something curious. The Pleiades' heliacal rising in the northern hemisphere coincides with the onset of the Southwest's monsoon season. The Hopi didn't just observe this, they encoded it into their cosmology, understanding that the Qixina's arrival heralded not just spiritual renewal, but the literal water needed for survival. Even the word Qixina derives from Qixi, meaning life-bringer, tying these celestial envoys to both rain and wisdom. Today, as light pollution dims the Pleiades in many skies, Hopi elders continue the traditions. Children are still taught to spot the cluster's return, and dancers still move to rhythms older than written language. The Qixina stars remind us that the universe isn't just above us, it's woven into the very fabric of culture, a bridge between earth and sky that endures long after the desert swallows the footprints of the dancers. High above the clouds, where the Himalayas scrape the edge of the sky, stands a mountain that isn't just rock and ice. It's the axle around which the entire universe turns. Tibetan monks call it Mount Meru, the axis mundi where gods and demons wrestle not for land or treasure, but for the very fabric of reality. Picture this, a golden peak stretching 84,000 leagues into the heavens, its slopes terraced with celestial palaces, while beneath its roots churn the infernal realms. 4 rivers of liquid stars symbolizing the Ganges, Indus, Oxus, and Tarim, spiral down its flanks, dividing the world into continents shaped like a lotus in full bloom. This isn't fantasy geography. To the ancient Buddhists and Hindus who envisioned it, Meru was a cosmic blueprint, its dimensions encoding sacred mathematics that mirrored the structure of mandalas and the human soul. The mountain's true power lies in its role as a divine churn. Just as the Hindu gods and asuras once coiled the serpent Vasuki around Mount Mandara to stir the ocean of milk, Tibetan cosmology describes Devas and Rakshasas circling Meru in an eternal tug of war. Their struggle generates the alternating cycles of creation and destruction, each rotation of the mountain grinding out time itself like grains from a mill. The Kalachakra Tantra, a revered Buddhist text, maps this process onto the human body. Maru becomes the spine, the warring deities the flow of breath and energy through subtle channels. Even the mountain's proportions reflect this harmony. 4 sides of crystal, ruby, lapis, and gold correspond to the 4 elements, while its height matches the distance between Earth's surface and the orbit of Saturn in some esoteric calculations. What's astonishing is how this myth aligns with physical reality. Pilgrims to Mount Kailash, often identified as Meru's earthly counterpart, notice something uncanny. 4 major rivers, the Indus, Sutlej, Brahmaputra, and Karnali, do indeed radiate from the region like the mountain's mythical streams. Kailash's sheer faces mirror the descriptions of Meru's jeweled slopes, and its isolation in the Tibetan plateau makes it seem less a part of the landscape and more a monument dropped from the heavens. Even more striking, the mountain's shadow at sunset during certain equinoxes forms a perfect pyramid, as if the unseen peak of Meru momentarily casts its silhouette across our world. Meru's influence extends beyond geography. Tibetan mandalas, those intricate meditation diagrams, are essentially flattened versions of the mountain, gateways to enlightenment where practitioners visualize themselves ascending through its celestial tiers. The outer ring of fire becomes the mountain's base, the square palace at the center its summit. Monks spend weeks crafting these from colored sands only to destroy them in an instant, a reminder that even cosmic order is fleeting. Modern astrophysicists have noted how Meru's description as a world pillar echoes the axis of Earth's rotation, while the churning deities could symbolize the gravitational forces that spin galaxies into being. Perhaps the most profound lesson lies in Meru's invisibility. Though countless explorers have searched for its physical form, the mountain reveals itself only to those who understand it as both map and metaphor. When a Nepalese Sherpa was asked why no one climbs Kailash, he replied simply, "Because the real mountain isn't there." He gestured to his chest, "It's here." In the end, Meru isn't a place, it's a mirror, a reflection of the universe's grandeur, the mind's capacity for wonder, and the unshakable truth that sometimes the most real things are the ones we can never touch. In the quiet hush of a Baltic twilight, when the first stars pierced the violet sky, the ancient Lithuanians didn't just see a sunset, they witnessed Sol, the sun goddess, beginning her nightly journey through a celestial forest. Her path, the Milky Way, not as a river of light, but as an endless grove of silver birch trees, their trunks glowing like polished bone in the eternal dusk. Every evening, as she stepped into this astral woodland, her golden chariot transformed into a sleigh pulled by fiery horses, their hooves kicking up sparks that became the stars we know as Orion's belt. But Sol never traveled alone. Close behind her, always chasing but never catching, came Menulis, the moon god, his motives as shifting as the phases he governed. This celestial dance wasn't just poetic imagination. The Lithuanians mapped the lunar cycle onto Menulis' pursuit. When the moon was new, it meant he'd strayed from the path, lost in the birch shadows as he plotted to betray Sol. By the time he reappeared as a waxing crescent, he was creeping closer, his silver form growing bolder each night. At full moon, he reached his reckless zenith. Myth says he once nearly overtook Sol, only for Perkunas, the thunder god, to strike him in half with a lightning bolt. The resulting craters, still visible today, dark scars pocking the moon's glowing face. And as the waning phase began, Menulis limped away, his light dimming until the cycle reset. The birch forest itself held secrets. Those trees, modern astronomers recognized them as interstellar dust clouds within the Milky Way, their dense filaments eerily resembling the slender trunks of Baltic silver birches. The goddess's sleigh tracks, possibly the zodiacal light, that faint glow trailing the ecliptic where her horse's hooves scattered stardust. Even Sol's golden crown, said to tarnish when eclipses occurred, finds a scientific parallel in coronal mass ejections, those violent solar flares that momentarily dim the sun's brilliance. What makes this myth endure isn't just its beauty, but its precision. Villagers once timed crop plantings by Menelau's phases, knowing his anger full moon brought unpredictable rains. Fishermen watched for Saul's sleigh lights reflected in the Baltic Sea, a phenomenon now understood as bioluminescent algae stirred by lunar tides. Today, during the summer solstice, when Saul's power peaks, Lithuanians still weave crowns of oak leaves and amber, throwing them into rivers to mirror the sun's path through the cosmic birch grove. The names may have faded, but the sky still tells the same story, a chase as old as time, written in light and shadow, forever playing out above the whispering trees. Long before telescopes pierced the night, before science named the constellations, the Zulu people of southern Africa looked up and saw not just stars, but scattered seeds, precious grains of life cast across the heavens by the great creator Unkulunkulu. According to their ancient legends, this primordial being didn't simply mold humanity from clay or summon us into existence with words. Instead, he reached into the cosmic granary of the Milky Way, scooping handfuls of star dust infused with the spark of life, and scattered them across the land like a farmer sowing a field. Where these celestial seeds fell, they took root, germinating into the first people, their DNA carrying fragments of stardust that connected them forever to the origins of the universe. This myth resonates with startling clarity in the modern age. The Zulu concept of Intabathi Yezinkanyezi, stardust soil, finds eerie parallels in contemporary astrobiology. Scientists now know that the very elements composing our bodies, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, were forged in the hearts of dying stars and scattered across the cosmos by supernova. The panspermia hypothesis, which suggests life's building blocks may have arrived on Earth via comets or meteorites, reads almost like a scientific retelling of Unkulunkulu's sowing. Even the term cosmic ancestry, coined by researchers studying extraterrestrial microorganisms in ancient rocks, echoes the Zulu belief that humanity's lineage stretches beyond Earth to the stars themselves. But the legend goes deeper than mere stardust. Unkulunkulu didn't just scatter life at random, he planted with purpose. Zulu star lore describes specific constellations as seed baskets, celestial storage houses where the creator kept different varieties of life seeds. The Pleiades, known as Isi Limla or the digging stars, marked the time for planting earthly crops when they appeared at dawn, a direct correlation between celestial sowing and terrestrial agriculture. The Milky Way itself was called Unveil Wezulu, the spine of the sky, along which spiritual energy traveled like sap through a cosmic stalk. This wasn't just poetry, it was an intricate understanding of cosmic rhythms encoded in myth. Modern geneticists might raise an eyebrow at the notion of star seeds, but consider this. In 2017, researchers discovered nucleobases, the building blocks of DNA in meteorites like the Murchison specimen that fell in Australia. These organic compounds, identical to those found in terrestrial genes, suggest that life's raw materials indeed rain down from space. The Zulu elders who spoke of ancestors arriving on the breath of comets weren't far off. Even the timing aligns. Their oral histories suggest a great planting during the late heavy bombardment 4 billion years ago, when Earth was pummeled by space debris that may have carried life's precursors. What makes Unkulunkulu's story extraordinary isn't just its prescience, but its humility. Unlike creator gods who shape worlds with divine command, this deity worked through natural processes, scattering, germinating, nurturing. The Zulu saw themselves not as separate from the cosmos, but as literal extensions of it, their bodies woven from the same threads as the stars. When warriors died, it was said their spirits returned to the seed vaults of the Milky Way, completing the cycle. Today, as astronomers hunt for exoplanets and biologists decode our cosmic chemistry, we're relearning what the Zulu always knew, that every heartbeat, every thought, is a whisper from the stars where our seeds first sprouted. Long before the first canoes sliced through Pacific waves, the night sky above Hawaii was not just a map. It was a shimmering calabash, upturned and spilling its celestial waters across the black expanse. This was the work of Cain, the life-giving god of fresh water and creation, who saw the heavens parched and empty and vowed to fill them. But these weren't just random stars. Each droplet Cain placed became a navigational beacon, guiding voyagers across thousands of miles of open ocean. The Milky Way, to the Hawaiians, it was Iwikuamau, the backbone of the sky, a river of sacred water poured from Cain's gourd, its currents charting the paths between islands. The legend begins with thirst. The primordial earth, freshly formed from the union of Papahanaumoku Earth Mother and Wakea Sky Father, lay barren under a rainless sky. Cain, wielding his hollowed-out calabash, Hokulea, dove deep into the underworld springs of Cain Hunamoku, the hidden land where all freshwater originates. Each time he surfaced, his gourd brimmed not with liquid, but with liquid light star water that held the essence of life. With every pour, constellations took shape. Hikianalia Speaker became a marker for Tahiti's direction. Ki Ali Okona Ikalua Arcturus, the guide to Hawaiian shores. But Cain's work wasn't just celestial decoration. The star streams he created mirrored the terrestrial streams of Hawaii's valleys. Just as freshwater nourished taro patches below, the celestial waters nourished navigators above. The Cape Huopulu, a star compass used by Polynesian voyagers, divided the horizon into 32 houses, each aligned with a star that rose or set at specific points, much like Cain's calabash pouring its contents in deliberate arcs. When Hokulea Arcturus appeared directly overhead, sailors knew they'd reached the latitude of Hawaii. The Pleiades Makali, called the Little Eyes, signaled the start of Makahiki season when storms eased and voyages could resume. Modern astronomers have found startling precision in this myth. The star water metaphor aligns with the fact that water molecules have been detected in interstellar clouds, literally celestial reservoirs. The calabash itself resembles the concept of the celestial sphere, an imaginary globe enclosing the stars. Even Cain's underworld springs find a parallel in hydrothermal vents, where earthly water cycles begin deep beneath the ocean floor. Today, the legacy of Cain's calabash lives on in the Polynesian Voyaging Society's Hokulea canoe, which has sailed over 150,000 miles using only traditional star navigation. Crews still chant Cain's prayers when filling their water gourds, honoring the bond between celestial currents and earthly survival. When you next glimpse the Milky Way arching over the Pacific, remember, you're not just seeing stars. You're witnessing the spill of a god's sacred gourd, a roadmap written in liquid light still guiding wayfinders home. When Inanna, Queen of Heaven, fastened her 7 sacred garments to her body, each piece a symbol of her divine authority, she could never have imagined the price she would pay to wear them again. The Sumerian goddess's descent into the underworld wasn't just a myth. It was a celestial roadmap, her steps mirroring the ominous dance of Venus as it vanishes from the evening sky. Her journey begins with ambition. Inanna, associated with the planet Venus in all its luminous glory, resolves to visit her sister Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. But the Qurnugi'e, the land of no return, doesn't surrender its secrets lightly. To enter, Inanna must pass through 7 gates, and at each one, the gatekeeper strips away a piece of her regalia. First her crown, then her lapis lazuli necklace, her beaded robe, her breastplate, her golden ring, her measuring rod, and finally her very undergarments. Naked and humbled, she stands before Ereshkigal's throne only to be struck dead instantly, her corpse hung on a hook like butchered meat. Now look to the sky. Inanna's 7-fold descent eerily mirrors Venus's 7-week disappearance during its retrograde cycle. Just as the goddess sheds her garments one by one, the planet loses its brilliance each evening, dimming as it approaches the sun before vanishing completely for 3 days, a celestial death matching Inanna's time as a lifeless corpse in the underworld. Even the number of gates isn't arbitrary. Babylonian astronomers later documented Venus's retrograde path in 7 distinct phases, recorded in the Venus tablet of Amasajuka, a cuneiform text tracking its movements with startling accuracy over centuries. But the story doesn't end in darkness. Inanna's resurrection, negotiated by the cunning god Enki, who sends 2 sexless beings to trick Ereshkigal into reviving her, mirrors Venus's reemergence as the morning star. However, there's a catch. Inanna can't return alone. She must provide a substitute, ultimately condemning her beloved consort Dumuzi to alternate 6-month stretches in the underworld. This bittersweet resolution reflects Venus's dual identity as both evening and morning star, forever split between realms like Dumuzi shuttling between life and death. The myth's layers run deeper than astronomy. Each garment Inanna surrenders represents a facet of civilization, kingship, justice, fertility, hinting at how even the mightiest powers crumble before the inevitability of death. The 7 gates may also encode initiation rites from Sumerian mystery cults, where initiates underwent staged ordeals to attain wisdom. Even the land of no return has a modern parallel. Venus's surface, with its crushing pressure and lead melting heat, remains as inhospitable as Ereshkigal's domain, a place where human probes last mere hours before succumbing. What's haunting is how the tale resonates today. Inanna's forced exchange, a life for a life, finds echoes in the choices between economic growth and environmental sacrifice, between progress and its hidden cost. When Venus next vanishes from the twilight, remember, it's not just a planet disappearing. It's Inanna descending once more, a reminder that all light demands payment, and no journey through darkness leaves us unchanged. The waters of Avalon never ripple by chance, they part with purpose, as if answering some silent celestial command. In Arthurian legend, the Lady of the Lake emerges from these depths, her arms offering Excalibur like a gift from the universe itself. But what if her kingdom wasn't beneath the lake at all? What if she was never of this earth to begin with? Let's reimagine her as a cosmic guardian, her silver robes woven from starlight, her palace not in watery shadows but among the constellations. And that legendary sword she bestows upon Arthur, not forged in mortal fire but etched into the heavens themselves, Orion's belt, a triad of stars sharp enough to cut through fate. Picture the night sky over Glastonbury Tor, where ancient Britons once mapped their myths onto the stars. Orion, the hunter, strides across the winter firmament, his belt gleaming. 3 perfectly aligned stars known as Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintoka. To the medieval mind, these weren't just random points of light. They formed a celestial sword, its hilt the nebula-strewn scabbard of Orion's sword, its tip pointing toward Sirius, the dog star, as if guiding the blade's thrust. The lady's sudden appearance in Arthurian lore coincides with Orion's prominence in winter skies, her gifting of Excalibur mirroring the constellations rise above the horizon, a seasonal unveiling of divine arms. But the connections run deeper. The lady's title Nimue in some texts derives from Celtic words for sky and radiance, hinting at her stellar origins. Her habit of reclaiming Excalibur after Arthur's death echoes Orion's own mythic cycle, the Greek hunter slain by Scorpius only to be resurrected in the stars. Even the sword's famous inscription, "Take me up and cast me away," could be read as celestial instructions. Take me up when Orion ascends in winter, cast me away as he sinks beneath the spring horizon, his sword dissolving into the very lake Nimue rules. The lake itself might not be liquid. Ancient astronomers often described the Milky Way as a silver river or heavenly lake. Could Avalon's mists be the cosmic dust of our galaxy, with Nimue's movements choreographed by the rotation of the night sky? Medieval manuscripts sometimes depict her holding not just a sword but a mirror, perhaps reflecting the sky's movements, a tool for teaching Arthur to read the heavens as she does. Even her vanishing act, disappearing beneath the waters when her task is done, parallels the setting of Orion, swallowed by the western horizon as dawn approaches. Modern stargazers can still trace this legend. On a clear winter night, find Orion's belt and follow its line downward. It points directly to Sirius, but also, if you extend the path, to the position of the sun during the summer solstice. The Lady's Lake, then, might symbolize the ecliptic, the sun's apparent path through the sky, where celestial and earthly realms intersect. When Arthur draws Excalibur from the stone or water, depending on the version, he's not just claiming a weapon, he's aligning himself with cosmic order, pulling the sword of stars down into mortal history. Perhaps that's why the lady chooses him, not for strength alone, but because he's a mirror, a once and future king whose destiny burns as brightly as Betelgeuse, Orion's red supergiant shoulder. When he falls at Camlan, it's no coincidence that the dying king is last seen sailing toward Avalon, a journey that medieval star charts might depict as Orion's descent into the cosmic sea, his sword finally returning to the heavens where it belongs. The next time you see Orion's belt blazing overhead, remember, you're not just looking at stars, you're witnessing the outline of a myth, the gleam of a blade still waiting for the right hand to wield it again. From the fiery chariots of sun gods to celestial serpents coiled in the Milky Way, these 30 legends aren't just stories, they're humanity's first attempts at cosmic cartography, mapping the vast unknown with the only tools our ancestors had: wonder and imagination. Think about it, when the Dogon described Sirius's invisible companion star centuries before telescopes, or when the Aztecs predicted solstices from their eagle-shaped temples, they weren't just spinning tales. They were pioneering astronomers, poets of the cosmos who etched their observations into myth because the language of science hadn't yet been invented. What binds these stories across continents and millennia isn't just a shared awe of the night sky, it's something deeper, more visceral. When the Maori described the sky father Ranganui grieving for his separated earth mother with rain, or when the Cherokee shake rattles to scare the eclipse Lich'ulogu, they're revealing a truth modern astrophysics often forgets: the universe isn't just something we observe. It's something we feel. The stars aren't distant nuclear reactors, they're ancestors, lovers, warriors, and tricksters. The Milky Way isn't just a galaxy, it's a river, a serpent, a bridge, a spine. These myths remind us that astronomy and emotion were never meant to be divorced. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you step outside on a clear night, try seeing the sky through ancient eyes. When you spot Orion's belt, imagine King Arthur's sword Excalibur dangling there, or the Maya's celestial crocodile scales glinting in its stars. If you catch Venus at dusk, picture Inanna descending into the underworld, her light dimming as she sheds her divine robes. Each culture's legends are like a different filter over the same breathtaking cosmos, and the more filters you layer, the richer the view becomes. Now I want to hear your celestial stories. Did your grandparents share star myths from your heritage? Have you ever stumbled upon a constellation tale that made you see the sky differently? Drop your favorite cosmic legends in the comments. Let's build a living atlas of heavenly stories together. And if you're hungry for more journeys where myth and astronomy collide, don't forget to subscribe. The universe has been telling stories since the first stars ignited. We're just lucky enough to be here, ears pressed to the cosmos,